What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Athletes and Assets podcast with your host, Noah Lack. We just had on 11-year NBA veteran Pat Connaughton, who's an NBA champion with the Milwaukee Bucks, a killer real estate investor with 3 Leaf partners doing development in the greater Midwest area. Pat comes on the show to talk about his journey so far in the NBA, what it's like being a CEO of a 22-employee company, and how he manages to balance it all. If you can't, please like, subscribe, give us a comment if you're watching on YouTube so we can keep bringing the heat in motion. All right, let's get right into it. We appreciate you letting us come here in Milwaukee and shoot with you, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, appreciate you guys coming out.
Yeah, this is my first time in Milwaukee, but I got to tell the story on the pod. Well, it's not really a story, but I'm sure the city's great. I think what I've learned so far is I should have someone else book my hotel because I booked this, and I'm not going to air them out because I want to preserve the economy of that local region. But when I got to the motel and it was like armed security at the entrance, I was like, welcome to Milwaukee. Like, this is not what I expected.
Yeah, you were on the outskirts of the city.
Yeah.
You were on the outskirts of the city, but no, Milwaukee's great. It got great people, great blue-collar people. They care about the people around them. They care about, their sports teams, and they care about a lot of, cheese curds and beer.
Yeah. I got to tell this story because I think you would resonate with it. So when in a town like this, I feel like the love is so genuine and sincere with a town like Milwaukee. When we just shot with Moses Moody, shout out Moses, and the car dropped him off right in front of the farmer's market that you have to walk through to get to our studio. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to get swarmed. This is crazy. We walk to the farmer's market and nobody says anything. I'm almost like, San Francisco, are you guys not Warriors fans? Like, yeah. I'm not a picture, anything. Yeah. Or maybe they're being really respectful. When I was in Buffalo with Deion Dawkins, who's a lineman for the Bills, he gets out of the car right next to the studio. I mean, he's like 10 feet away from it. And the whole neighborhood goes, yeah, whoa. And like, he stops for like 5 minutes and takes pictures with all these people who were with him saw him for 2 seconds. I feel like Milwaukee's more on that side of the spectrum where you probably get so much love. This is everything to the people.
Yeah, I mean, they do a great job of balancing it, right? They do a great job of, if you're out to eat with, your wife and kid, like, they're not going to bother you while they're eating, right? Maybe on the walk in, maybe on the walk out. They'll ask for a photo. If, it's a little kid who's about to leave, they may come up for a photo. But they do a really good job of balancing it. And I think, we get to see how much this team and sports in general meant to them the year we won it. I'll never forget being on the parade bus, and, you got 10-year-olds who are going crazy. You got 90-year-olds who, are crying, right? Like, you have a vastly different spectrum of people, but it just shows how much they live and breathe professional sports in Milwaukee, whether it's the Bucks, the Brewers, the Packers, et cetera. And so I think that is kind of the pride that we wear when we're out there on the court at the Fiserv on a nightly basis, is trying to represent them to the best of our abilities.
You're really a champ. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's I will say that was what I said when we won it. Like, the moment you win it, the confetti comes down. Like, I remember it, but you're in such a mode of next series, next game, next series, next game, that it takes a second before it really sets in. And I'd actually say it set in more and more in the coming days and weeks when you're able to be like, oh, wow, like that's forever. Like, we won it. There is no more games, and that is etched in history forever. And so it's cool to look back on. It's cool to talk about, but it's also fuels you to want to be a part of another run and want to be a part of another championship contending team.
Do you remember when they asked you, have you guys had any champagne? You looked up Bobby Portis, and you guys started
that viral moment.
That was great.
That was really good. That was I got hit up maybe more about that than I did about actually Game 6 overall. It's
funny how life works, right?
Yeah.
You ball out in the game, but they only cared about you and Bobby drinking champagne
at the end.
You guys, man.
Yeah. So no, that was great. I mean, it was awesome too. Bobby and I were the same draft class, so to be able to be alongside him, he's gone through ups and downs in his career with different teams, and he finally found a home here in Milwaukee. And him being here, obviously, he's an integral part about what we do. And so to win it alongside him, to win it alongside a guy like PJ Tucker, to win it obviously alongside the guys like Chris, Giannis, Drew, et cetera, Brooke. But it was just, we had a really special team that year, and we had a really good group of guys, and everybody played their role. Nobody wanted to get more or less than what they had. Like, they really bought into the fact that as long as the team wins, we'll be all right.
100%. And well, now that you have you on the finals discussion, what do you think it's going to take, next year, in your opinion, to get back to it? I know it's not black and white answer, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of parity in the NBA, man. There's like no dynasty right now. Very possible. It's so interesting where we are.
Yeah, I think, look, the NBA goes through different phases, right? They go through phases where you get the big three. And I was a kid in Boston when the Celtics first got KG, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen, right? And then they had Rondo alongside them, and that was a big deal. They won a championship back in 2008. I was a fan at that moment, right? I was 14 years old. But when you talk about the ebbs and flows, then you talk about the Miami Big Three, then slowly you start to see it morph into two, and you talk about a Dame and Giannis, duo, and I think what you're seeing right now is the NBA slowly start to morph into, you need a star, you need somebody who has the ability to run a team in crunch time, you need somebody who has the ability to be the leader of the team, but there's so much more of an emphasis on the surrounding team, on depth, on role players, on your bench as well as your starters. And I think OKC and Indiana kind of epitomize that, right? Like OKC, obviously, everyone knows they got depth, they got assets for years. In Indiana, I think, look, we played them in the first round. They're a tremendous team. I think they'd be the first to admit to you that they're probably performing better than people on the outside would think, but they're probably performing to what they expected they had the ability to perform to. And I think it's because of how good they play as a team. They move the basketball. When they move the basketball, when Tyrese Haliburton has the ability to kind of swing that thing around and get everyone involved, the consistent pattern that I've seen is you got maybe a guy scoring 25 or 30, but you got a bunch of guys scoring between 10 and 20. And that adds up quickly in the NBA. That adds up quickly in playoff basketball when the game scores start to drop a little bit.
Shaq calls it the others.
Yep.
So the others are getting more love these days.
Yep, the others are getting more love. It's less of the Shaq days where you had to put 4 people on him and try to hang off of them or foul them or do something like that. Like,
can't do that with Patty in the corner.
Yeah, you can't do that with some people in the corner. That is for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll get back to this, but I also think the others make best. The others are the future CEOs. Here's why the others are the future CEOs, because I think some of the best players on teams oftentimes are not. The others have to worry more about their portfolio and company building. They don't make as much money. They can't just use their brand and image to get into deals and stuff. So I'll get into that later, but that's my early spicy take. Is the others make the better CEOs?
That's a pretty good take. I mean, you're playing the numbers game there because there are more others than there are stars. So percentages are in your favor.
What can
but
I say? I'm a numbers guy.
I think the sports world in general, I think you're seeing the modern athlete get way more involved in things off the court, whether it's through endorsement deals like you were saying, where star players are able to get equity or obviously investable assets based off who they are. But I think you're seeing a lot of guys also just get involved in things on their own more and more and start to understand, like, there was the 30 for 30 stereotype of, guys going broke, right? There was that show that kind of came out, and I think guys have started to shift away from that and understand, look, there are some guys that make so much money, it really isn't going to matter. Like, it would be impressive if they could spend all of it. But I think they're starting to understand that there is life after basketball, and what are you doing on a daily basis after basketball, and what are you judging success by, and how are you getting involved into other things you're passionate about. And I think that's been really cool for me to see, and obviously me, biasedly to be a part of, because I think guys are really starting to take an interest in educating themselves on how to utilize the money that they're fortunate to make in this profession and have it be there for their kids, and things of that nature.
100%. And best believe we're gonna nerd out on that in a second.
Sounds good.
But before we get to that, I gotta ask. So I did a double take when I was kind of going through, your overall body of work so far in the NBA. Year 11.
Year 10.
You're going into year 10 or 11?
Oh no, I'm going into year 11.
Yeah, year 11. That's what I mean. You're gonna be in year 11.
Yeah.
You scared me for a second.
No, that's good. That's good. Yeah, no, you did a good job.
Yeah. Holy crap, man! You're getting old.
I am. You're not wrong. I embrace it. I'm a veteran now, experienced. I have a high basketball IQ. The stereotype that I used to get of deceptively athletic is probably becoming slightly more true as I age.
I'm glad you brought that up, because you had a 44-inch vert.
Yeah.
To me, I don't know how that's deceptive. That's just athletic.
Yeah,
so
I appreciate that.
For those watching, just because I'm calling him old doesn't mean he's not athletic as shit. He's just I just older than I.
10 years in the NBA will do that to you.
100%.
Yeah.
But you still get up there, so I'm not taking that away from you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah, the 44-inch vert was definitely an accomplishment that I hang my hat on. Being in the slam dunk contest was an accomplishment I hang my hat on. Getting a 50 in that dunk contest. And then I think the thing that I actually thought was I was most proud of within that draft combine specifically was all the other agility drills that they put you through aside from just the vertical jump for a shooting guard in a small forward position. I was in the top 3 or 4 in all of those as well. So I think a lot of people talk about the vertical jump because it gets the most press, but the lane agility drill, the 94-foot court sprint, like all of those things that, when I was going through that draft process, I knew, baseball flow-haired Pat, that wasn't quite as good as yours, but it was working on it.
Man.
But yeah, I thought for me, I knew going into that draft work, like that draft process for the NBA, I was going to have the stereotype of baseball player Pat is he athletic enough to play in the NBA, and that was a real mission I was on to disprove that.
So the lane agility drill, I'm actually curious on this. Is that the one where you sprint, side, back pedal, slide, sprint, slide, back pedal?
Yep.
That drill I'm actually most fascinated with. How much did you prepare for that drill?
I prep for all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I know there is a portion of my athleticism that is talent-based, but a lot of mine is based off of work ethic. A lot of mine is based off of IQ.
You're a Massachusetts guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Middlesex Magic.
Yeah, I'm a Massachusetts guy. I'm a Magic guy.
Chop wood, carry water.
Yep, chop wood, carry water, 100%. Rents, look, success is earned. It's not given. Rents due every day. Yeah. Any analogy you want to use, I got them. I got them all in a folder on my phone.
I feel like a lot of them you stored up at Notre Dame. I feel like Bray had
to
do that for you.
Yeah, actually Coach Stotts too. Shout out Coach Stotts, who's on the Warriors bench now, but he head coach my first 3 years. He used to send them to us on game days. So my strength coach at Notre Dame, Tony Rolinski, and my head coach in Portland used to send them, and I got a whole folder with all of the ones from them as well as ones I've accumulated through my 10 years in the NBA.
Yeah, and speaking of – so go ahead.
Well, I was going to say shout out also to Mass guys in general. I think basketball in Massachusetts was vastly underrated. And obviously we get Patrick Ewing guys that have big names, but the years that I played AAU with the Magic, we had, I think, at least 10 to 12 guys, all in that age range, all who grew up playing against each other, all who knew each other, make it to the NBA. Guys like Shabazz Napier, Georges Niang, Duncan Robinson, Michael Carter-Williams, Nerlens Noel, Jake Layman, Zach August, Monty Colson, Wayne Selden. Like, the list kind of goes on. Like, there's a lot of guys that got there, and I think that hopefully continues to put Massachusetts basketball on the map.
Do you count the NEPSAC schools as Mass schools?
Yeah, I go New England in general. Like I try to, claim all of New England. Tyler Kolek's currently in the NBA. Like I try to claim all of them, but yeah, I count the NEPSAC.
You remember I don't know, this is a little younger than you, but the Zagorowski twins.
Yeah.
Zagorowski twins were filthy at Tilton.
Yeah, Tilton was a powerhouse.
Then you had and I'm so mad because his name escaped me, on the Clippers.
Terrence Mann.
Terrence Mann.
Terrence Mann's another one. Yep. Terrence Mann's another one. Yep.
Yeah.
He's another one. Sorry, Terrence, I forgot you.
Then you had like Marcos Santos Silva from Vermont. There's a bunch of guys.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
But you brought up baseball, and I think by now it's common knowledge, but in case for the A&A people who didn't know, you were drafted 4th round MLB draft, Orioles, junior year of college. And you're a baseball player growing up. Was it hard to let go of baseball when it was time to make that decision?
It was. I enjoyed going through a summer of pro baseball. So when I got drafted my junior year, I went to spring training with the Orioles. I went to the minor leagues in Aberdeen, Maryland, Aberdeen Ironbirds. I played a summer of professional baseball before going back to Notre Dame for my senior year of basketball. And so to experience, minor league baseball, to experience, honestly, how much better I got at pitching over the course of those 3 months, and to see the potential that I had in baseball and the belief that the Orioles management and system had in me was really cool. Now, riding buses and getting into places at 4 a.m. and sleeping all day and then going to play a game at night and doing that in the city 3 days in a row and then going to the next one isn't glamorous. But it was really cool, really eye-opening, and it was something that, on summer nights I still miss going out there and pitching. I still miss that competitive juice of, you're on an island literally. Like, you're on that mound. It's only you. You got obviously your 7 guys behind you and the catcher in front of you, but you got to either pitch really well, or more likely what I did was put myself into a jam and then figure it the way out.
So since you played minor league baseball,
yep.
When people bring up the MJ minor league story, do you just tell people hold my beer? Like, if only, like, you're not the only one that did that.
Look, I mean, I get a lot of who are other dual sport guys that did it at the level, and obviously MJ's one. Danny Ainge is another one. Being a kid that grew up in Boston, I actually played with some of Danny Ainge's kids with the Middlesex Magic.
Yep.
He did it at an extremely high level. I think.
Kimball.
Yep, Crew with the Gimbal. Cooper played with the Magic. I talked to Crew actually on the phone yesterday or 2 days ago. He's out there in the development world too, doing some stuff out there in Utah. So he was a good little player, but and a great kid. But I think people underrate how well Danny Ainge did it. Like, he did a great job. He got to the bigs and then he went to basketball, right? Like, obviously MJ is the guy that everyone points to with the dual sports, but there were more of us, that did it than I think people think. Less that did it in basketball. A lot of people that did it in football and baseball.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got the Bo Jacksons, the Deion Sanders, the guys that did a really good job. Charlie Ward, that did a really good job. It was more football, basketball, but that did a really good job of balancing the two sports. But two sports and multiple sports at a youth level, which is something I preached through my foundation, all the way up through as long as you can take it, is something that I think is very vastly underrated for kids' developments, kids' abilities to prevent injury, and just their overall, social ability, leadership abilities, and ability to kind of like be put in different positions and have success.
Totally agree. I have nothing to add to that. I 100% agree. Can I give you a fun fact?
Yeah.
Charlie Ward was our high school football coach my freshman year.
No way.
And I went to a private school in Houston where the average kid per grade, there was 80 kids, per
wow.
grade. Charlie Ward was there for when
you had to have a good football program.
He did recruit some good people,
good.
But we were a tiny school. So I think that's probably why he moved on to St. Thomas Equinox or wherever
makes
in
sense.
Florida.
Makes sense.
But yeah, shout out Charlie Ward, humble, really nice guy. In that same light, you know who I think doesn't get enough credit for what he's doing? Pat Spencer.
Oh, Spence, yeah, absolutely. He's great. I talked to him when we played the Warriors this year, and what he's been able to do with the lacrosse basketball crossover, and how he's been able to carve a great role for himself in the NBA when he gets those opportunities has been impressive, and something I root for. I root for that. I root for all those two sport guys who have played both sports at a high level and then have been fortunate to go pro in one of them, if not two of them.
100%. Before we kind of dive into the biz, I gotta ask you, and it's a burning question that we've chatted about internally. If you could describe in maybe 1 to 2 sentences this journey you've been on with Giannis, playing with a global superstar like that, fiery but humble. Like, how would you describe this journey you've been on?
Incredible. I'm playing alongside one of the best basketball players to ever play this game. He'll go down in history as, I think a top 5 guy to ever play this game. And I think to be alongside him for, going on seven years, going on our 8th, is something that I think you can't overlook. You can't, take it for granted. And I always make the joke to him, when I got here 7 years ago, he didn't have an MVP yet, and he's gone on an incredible run since then. So I won't take all the credit, just a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But the analogy or the saying that I use, the phrase is like, everyone's able to see how incredible of a basketball player he is, but he's an even better person. And so if the fans out there and the people out there that watch him and marvel at what he's able to do on the basketball court, just take that and multiply it as far as who he is as a person. I don't think he's ever lost that. Obviously, he's talked at length of the humble beginnings he's come from and how he's been able to, stay the same and keep that work ethic, keep that drive, keep the, personality and the character that, he has, I think is impressive, because you don't always see that, when, people have some success, sometimes it goes to their head. And I think you see that a decent amount in the NBA and in pro sports in general, but he's done a tremendous job. He's got a tremendous support group around him. Obviously his family, his brothers, his mom, like the ones that he, talks to all the time, his wife Mariah and his kids, like he's got a tremendous family around him, but he also deserves a lot of the credit himself.
100%. Yeah, it's amazing to see his journey, and I'm sure that 30 for 30 on the Antetokounmpo brothers is going to do numbers.
Yeah, you might want to get to learn how to say that one a little bit better before that 30 for 30 comes out.
Let me do that again, but in preparation for the 30 for 30. The 30 for 30 on the Antetokounmpo bros is going to do numbers.
Good. I like that you threw in the slang of bros. Yeah, they'll appreciate that. Shout out for their clothing line.
Yeah, 100%. Wait.
Antetokounmpo bros.
Oh, that's what the clothing line is?
Yeah.
Jeez.
We are all bros. I know the
yeah.
slang and everything. They haven't given me any gear yet, but I know the slang and everything.
I mean, the way you're promoting them, I hope they give you some sweat equity. We're big advocates of
Yeah,
that.
I get that.
You see how the natural plug. By the way, Devin, he's very trained because the joke about Giannis didn't get his MVP until you were there. Dan Patrick loved that one.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
that was a good one. This guy, you're trained. You got
Notre Dame guys,
Yeah.
Notre Dame guys.
Yeah, 100%.
They teach us something at that school, even the athletes.
100%. They taught us something a little bit at Santa Clara. Whoa. Before we get further into the episode, I know you're enjoying it, but look, I'm hungry. I got a high metabolism. I'm an athlete too, okay? And so luckily our friends at Huel have completely hooked us up with some of the best protein powder you can get on the market. All right, I typically drink this right before lunch or after I work out. It helps with muscle building, recovery. It's got 40 grams of protein in it. You got the chocolate flavor, the vanilla. All right, they even got this beautiful packaging. $45 online. It's one of the best deals you can get on the market. And guess what? Yes, you better believe it. It's in the show notes. You can go check it out, Huel.com, or go to the description of the show. Hope you guys enjoy and stay fueled up. Or should I say fueled up? Pun intended. Walk me through this. You're an active NBA player, NBA champion, but you're also the CEO of a fairly large and I would say very established at this point real estate company. Three Leaf Partners.
Yep.
Doing some incredible development work in the Midwest. Your background in real estate, your father was in real estate, right?
General contractor.
Yep. And
I've been working on his job site since I was in like 6th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were a lumber guy.
Yeah.
Like carrying stuff.
Yep. Hauling lumber, cleaning dumpsters, not well oftentimes, which I was reminded of, but I learned, and it was hard work, and it was, a summer job. Like it was something that, preached work ethic, and it wasn't glamorous again, but it was something that, obviously taught me hard work, taught me that, you put the time in and then you can get rewarded on the back end. And, my dad obviously did a lot for me because of it. So that's important context, because clearly there was some interest in real estate, during your career. Yeah, I think for me, I was able to get a firsthand look at, my dad was a GC. He was hired to do buildings back in the Boston, Back Bay, Beacon Street, stuff like that. He was hired. He would do some luxury home developments in the suburbs, but as that was his way to provide for my family. And as he obviously was able to save up some money, he'd flip a home himself on the side to make a little extra cash. And I think for me to be able to see it firsthand, even at such a young age, where I had no thought of the business. I was thinking how I was going to get to my baseball game that night and how tired I was going to be after, going up and down stairs with sheetrock. But for me, there was something that unconsciously kind of just set in, and seeing the building or the home or the land that he was hired to redevelop at the beginning, and then what it looked like at the end, and the difference that it made, and the quality of work that he did, and the value that it created. You're a better man than me, because I'd be damned if I showed up to a basketball game with a sore back carrying a bunch of wood around. Yeah, well, if you knew my dad, you would have been damned then. Yeah, you would have just dealt with it. Yeah, that makes sense. So, what gave you that confidence in that conviction to start Three Leaf during your playing career? It was a combination of, obviously, my dad's mentorship, stuff I learned at Notre Dame, and quite frankly, just the honest truth that being a professional athlete, while it was my dream, wasn't a surefire thing for me, right? Like I had a lot more of a chance to become a professional baseball player than I did a professional basketball player. And some of the things I learned at Notre Dame was just continually getting involved in things that were interesting, because whether I was fortunate to become a professional athlete for 10 plus years or whether I wasn't, it's going to end at some point. And so what are those things that you're interested in? How do you get involved in things that you have a passion for? And for me, I was lucky because I had a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of knowledge in the real estate space because of my dad. So that for me was the reason I kind of dove in with my signing bonus from the Orioles, that summer. That was the reason, when I was fortunate to be drafted by the Trailblazers, I dove in out in Portland with a couple of homes. And along the way, learning from my dad, I also learned from others, right? Like I learned from the platform that Notre Dame has and the alumni that come from Notre Dame. They always call it like the Notre Dame Mafia, right? Like they stick together, they look out for each other. Like it's a crazy thing, and it's awesome, and it's something that I'll do for the next kid at Notre Dame that wants it and needs it. And we have Notre Dame interns now that come through Three Leaf, right? And so they've opened a real estate institute because of the continued growth and interest in real estate for kids at Notre Dame. And so I think the mentorship I got from that Notre Dame alumni network, the mentorship that I got from the NBA network, whether it was through ownership groups or just through season ticket holders that sat courtside, like the best advice that I got that I was smart enough to take was just meet people while you're in the NBA. They want to meet you a lot more when you have an NBA jersey on than when you take that NBA jersey off. And so I think for me, it was not just the meeting of people, but it was then the following up. It was then the asking of questions. It was understanding that I wanted to put myself in rooms that I was never the smartest guy in the room in. And, my dad and one of my mentors always have a good line: if you're the smartest guy in that room, get the hell out of that room, right? 100%. So, just who I surrounded myself with was something that my parents, my mom and dad, preached to me since a young age. And then I was able to learn, at Notre Dame, take advantage of the platform that you're given if you're fortunate to become a professional athlete and try to get your feet wet. And the best way to learn is through mistakes and through experiences. And so I just kind of dove into, flipping some homes with the money that I had, what I could afford, and with the continued growth and the mentors that I had and the continued or the newfound interest from some of my teammates and some of the guys across the leagues, because of that kind of inherent trust that you have with people in your locker room. Like I've been fortunate to be on two teams, the Trailblazers and the Bucks, that guys take an interest in their teammates off the court. They want to know their families. They want to know things they're passionate about. They want to know initiatives. Culture. Yeah, it's good culture stuff. You go out to dinner, you talk about it. I remember my first, 3 years in Portland, Chris Kaman was on his last year, my rookie year, Ed Davis, Al-Farouq Aminu, Myers Leonard. There was a group of us that we'd go out to dinner often on road trips, and you couldn't have a phone out. Like it was, you're talking, right? Like you included, Evan Turner, CJ McCollum, guys that like we'd have a steam room mafia. We'd talk about stuff in the steam room, and you couldn't have your phone. And like those experiences are things that I won't forget because it kind of set me up to understand that business and whatever you're aspiring to achieve off the court, it's a product of the people you surround yourself with, and it's a product of surrounding yourself with good, like-minded individuals.
Well, there's a lot of things to take away from that. Thank you for that breakdown. I think first off, if you ever start a podcast with your teammates, you don't call it the Steam Room Mafia. That's on you, man. That's
well, I think didn't Ernie and doesn't Ernie and Charles Barkley have something?
Sure, the Steam Room.
Yeah, like they didn't add mafia to it. Probably more professional on their part, but I think, look, with some of the teammates that I had, like there would have been some entertainment.
100%. I think. First off, I need to say this. Notre Dame should sponsor us by now, that amount of alum we've had on this show. I mean, like half the damn guests are Notre Dame alum. That alumni is ridiculous.
Good luck getting $1 out of them. They put that to use. I promise you that.
Yeah. No, I know for sure. And then I took something away from Will Compton. Shout out Will Compton, Bustin' with the Boys. He said, when you're in the NFL, your smile's wider, your jokes are funnier. And it applies to...
You're 3 inches taller.
Exactly.
You're more handsome.
Better looking.
The whole thing, yeah.
Your business idea sounds better.
Yeah, anybody will listen to you.
Yeah, you're more investable.
Yeah.
Better leader.
Yeah, the whole
everything. So, we say that a lot on the show, but I think it never falls on deaf ears.
Yeah, and I think guys have gotten better about understanding that they need to think about their careers. Life after their careers prior to the last couple of years of their career. Right? Like, and that's where, now for me, I started thinking about it so early because I didn't know how long my career was going to last. So I could have been thinking about it on my last couple of years of the beginning of my career. But I've been fortunate to obviously create a 10-plus year career in the NBA. And because I started thinking about it early, because I started getting experiences and diving in early, I've been fortunate to grow something that will last me long beyond my playing days.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because things always change and update. We have some information here that Three Leaf, you've done $550 million in real estate projects this year alone.
No, not this year alone. That's total.
Total.
That's
okay.
in total. So Three Leaf started with Footman Homes, started doing some 2-4 unit buildings on my own. Slowly started to get some of my teammates involved. Slowly started to get more professional athletes involved. Got to Portland, got some great mentors within the got to Wisconsin, got some great mentors within the Milwaukee area that have done real estate at a high level. One of them in particular, Matt Burrow, was a great mentor of mine. We got introduced through some philanthropic initiatives in the city of Milwaukee.
Joe?
No relation to Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow is more than welcome to invest if he wants.
Sure.
And so Matt had built a construction company. And so he was a general contractor. He was just like my dad. And so it got to a place where after a couple of years of getting to know him, and it was actually the year of our championship run, he was dissolving his construction company into an ESOP, and he wanted to get more involved in development. And he had done an incredible job of redeveloping mission-based organizations' land, whether it's churches, schools, 501c3s that were struggling for cash during COVID and struggling for cash even earlier, and they were all reliant on donations as opposed to, here, we're creating some cash flow here, right? And so he did a tremendous job helping out those types of organizations. So he had built up, kind of a pipeline of opportunities, and he had seen what we had been building at Three Leaf. And so we partnered together. My dad, who obviously has the general contracting background, I saw the value that he was able to bring on getting things done on time and on budget and controlling the cost of stuff when things are rising and falling, because construction's kind of like a different language, right? Like you have a pair of Nikes on, they're going to cost the same no matter where you're at. But a 2x4 and a piece of lumber is going to cost something different in Milwaukee versus in Boston, right?
100%.
Like it's just a confusing thing. And so if you don't know it, you can get taken advantage of pretty quickly. So I saw the value that my dad brought in that, and Matt, our core values, our moral compass aligned, perfectly. And he was able to kind of bring that same value, and I was able to bring our platform and the ability to raise equity to the table. And so when we partnered back in 2021, we've done $555 million of development to date. Now that's inclusive. People mistake that. Like that's inclusive of debt. That's inclusive of everything, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we own $555 million. I got a few calls after boardroom announced that we're over $500 million. Like, oh wow, you make so much off the court. No, that's not how that works. Like we're still a startup. We're still growing. We're still working towards, our balance sheet. We're still working towards growing our company and things of that nature. But it's been a tremendous amount of growth over the last 4 years, and we've put ourselves in the position where we got 22 employees. We take on 3 or 4 interns every summer from local universities, whether it's Madison or Marquette, UWM, Notre Dame, obviously, as I mentioned. We try to do we did $163 million of development 2 years ago. We did about $192 million of development last year. This year, our hopes to get over the $200 million of development mark. And it's just that continued growth, right? Like our big thing is we want to be helpful to our mission-based partners. We want to work with churches and schools that need the help and create those win-win situations that, we can invest in them and their project and their land, and they can take the cash flow that's created from our projects and really put it towards whatever it is that their philanthropic desires are.
I respect you breaking that down, very concretely, because all we see is the big graphic, $550 million back Connaughton.
Yeah, I'm still in Nike gear that they give me for free.
So we got to talk about the Fitz.
Okay.
Let's upscale apartment building, East Milwaukee. And I'm looking at this is one of your properties, and I'm looking at the rental prices for how nice it is, and I start to get mad because you talked about the piece of lumber that's worth different. Try San Francisco. Try to do some business over there in San Francisco. I'm looking at the rental property, and it is so nice for a rent that's cheaper than what I'm currently paying. And I hope my landlord doesn't watch this video, but I ain't exactly living like a king.
Yeah,
Fitz is nice, man.
Yeah. Yeah, location. But the Fitz is a great project. It's already won, 3 design awards in the city of Milwaukee. Unfortunately, I don't believe we have a unit for you. They're all leased up, which is good for us, maybe not great for you. But
let me delete the question I was going to ask. Yeah, next, that's actually what's going to be the. I was actually like, ask if I can stay there.
No, you can't yet. But we'll check the rent roll for you, see when anybody comes up. But people love it. Like, it's a great location. It's a great project. Like I said, the city and the design of it and the location of it, people love. So we've been fortunate. There hasn't been a whole lot of turnover there, and like that was part of our growth, right? Like, that's a 50+ unit building that we just started last summer, a 267 unit building, right? But we tried to grow responsibly. We went from the 8, the 38, to the 48 to the 60 unit building, and a lot of people will tell you, there's not a whole lot of difference between a 50 unit building and a 260 unit building. And generally that's correct, but you still want to walk before you run.
Sure.
Like my 13-month-old, he walked before he ran. Now he ran very fastly after he walked, but he walked before he ran. And so like when we look at what we did in the business world, we want to do the same thing. We wanted to be able to make sure that investors believed in our ability to execute in a responsibly growing industry and grow in a responsible rate.
That's deep, by the way. What you just said. I don't know if you just caught yourself there. That was deep. I could see you at a conference. Bring your son. You see how he's crawling before he walks?
Yeah.
And that's what you guys should be doing.
Yeah. My son, he's funny, man. He's funny.
You just got your business bag there real quick.
I tried my best.
Yeah,
my best.
That's good stuff.
I appreciate that.
That's good stuff. Okay, so look, man, like you've now been in this space long enough to where you're a full-blown entrepreneur as well as a basketball player, but what is the toughest part for you about being an entrepreneur?
I think the toughest part for me is just the time management piece, right? Like, my number one priority is basketball. It's being in the NBA. It's producing for the Milwaukee Bucks. It's extending my career. It's being a role player on a potentially championship contending team, and it's continue to try to, elongate that for as long as I can. Well, that's priority number one, but the first priority, the priority number 0, agent 0, is family, right?
Yeah.
Like, I got a fiance who is incredible by her own right in her athletic career and the things that she does off the field and what she's been able to do since coming back from having our son, and all of that, is just inspirational in a completely different sense of the word. And then you add the third thing with, the entrepreneur side of stuff, whether it be via 3Leaf, whether it be via my foundation, because although it's the philanthropic initiative, it's still entrepreneurial mindset. And so I learned that keeping myself busy keeps me out of trouble, but I also learned that you got to figure out a way to balance it, right? And you got to make sure that you have your priorities in line, that you are focused first and foremost on your family, you're focused, second foremost on what your number one career is, and that's basketball. And getting involved in things outside of professional sports for all professional athletes, I think, is important to do, but that doesn't mean you should lose sight on the finite amount of time that you have to be a professional athlete. Like, the thing that I liked and enjoy most about what we've built at 3Leaf has been the educational component and the conversations I've been able to have with the professional athletes that invest alongside of our projects, because it's a tangible, investable asset. They will come on the job sites. They'll see it. They'll see our construction updates that, shout out, Devin does such a great job with, from phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, whether it's through the framing, site work, whether it's through the walls, the enclosure, like any part of it, they'll be able to see the progress. So they'll know where their money is going. But
is that why so many have invested with you? 40 is a lot over
Yep.
40 athletes.
Yep.
Every athlete has a business. Not 40 athletes are invested in your teammates. Like, is it because you've brought them to the sites? Is that convincing? Is it because of the tangible look, feel, touch of the projects? Like, how are you able to close so many athlete investors?
I think it's a combination of a bunch of things, right? So I think it's a combination of being a professional athlete alongside them, right? Like, I'm not just somebody coming off the street that they don't know. And
100%. We know that credibility is there, right?
That day-to-day, being in the trenches with them, I think, coupled with that, they have to believe that you have the ability to execute, right? And I think them seeing what we've executed on, seeing that I put my own money into these deals and I have put my own money at risk alongside them, I think brings a lot. But yeah, then I think it's the touch and feel, their ability to understand. And I think real estate, look, I'm biased, but I think real estate is an asset class, and I know we can debate it because I know you're a venture guy, but it's an asset class that I think fits perfectly with professional athletes. Not that you shouldn't have diversification within venture, but like it's long-term growth. It's like you're not just losing everything, right?
Yeah.
Like it's long-term
You can't
growth.
make more of it.
Right. And so it's one of those things that like if you're investing while you have a source of income as a professional athlete, you may not be getting this ridiculous return rate at the beginning in the infancy of a development project. But over the course of time, that's going to build and build. And hopefully if you continue to reinvest, like not just your first investment, but your 15th investment, that cash flow when your career's over is going to be a passive source of income that you're going to actually be able to use for your life. And I think that's where a lot of athletes who find themselves in financial difficulty struggle is their spending stays the same because they think they're going to always be making the same money. And then when they're not always making the same money, they don't alter their spending because they've gotten used to that lifestyle. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. You're getting hit from two directions where if you can augment what you've made and create some passive income, you're at least able to negate that a little bit. And then I think the other thing for me that I think I've enjoyed most about educating, athletes on this is we are fortunate to the utmost to be making what we make to play a sport for a living. Obviously, there's a ton of hard work and a ton of things that go into it. But I think what a lot of people don't realize, and remind me, I'm going to come back to one thing about the athlete investors. Remind me about that. I think one thing that people don't realize is professional athletes make all this money at the beginning of their working careers. And then they're expected to have that money last them for the rest of their lives. The normal person that's working a career, they slowly grow in their incremental income for 30, 40, 50, 60 years potentially. Right. There's always a source of income, and it's always slowly growing as they get more mature, as they experience more about what their lifestyle looks like. They grow into it. Mm-hmm. Athletes, it's splatted, and it's by no means something people should feel bad for us about. Yeah. But it takes a mindset shift. Like you have 100%. To look at it differently. Where some guys only make the average NBA career is 4 years, right? The average NFL career is 3.5 years, whatever it is. Like there's the guys like Dame, Giannis, LeBron. There's the guys that everyone sees these contracts, right? But the vast majority of players in professional sports aren't in professional sports for that long. And the money that they've made is great money. It's nothing we should, again, be felt bad about. But they're not making money that's going to last them their whole lives.
Right.
So I think that mindset shift has been something that I've talked a lot about athletes with is like you got to start to think about what you're going to get involved in after sport or what you're doing with the money you're making now that can help set you up to have a means of income so you aren't burdened with the need to get a job that you don't want to get when inevitably, if you're not good with your finances, you hit that place where you have to get it. And I think what I was going to say is I think
the athlete investor piece.
Yeah, the athlete investor piece, the question you asked, like out of the 40 athletes that we've had invested, we've probably talked to 150. Like the investment rate hasn't been as high as it could be.
That's still a high rate in my world.
It's a good rate. Yeah, it's a good rate.
40 for 150. This ain't baseball. You bat 0.33%. You're in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but we're in basketball. If I shoot 0.33% from the free throw line, I'm going to be out of the league pretty quickly.
You'd be in Guangdong or Puerto Rico with DeMarcus Cousins getting beer thrown on.
But hey, Boogie Cousins was my teammate. He was a great teammate.
Yeah. But if I go for 150 on a fundraise, I got 2 yeses. It's good for me.
Right.
Anyways, I don't know, that percentage is still high.
Yeah, it's still a good percentage. I think the thing that I ran into very early on that I saw was professional athletes, they rely on people they trust or people they think they should trust. And I think what I've seen is there's a little bit of a misalignment between the financial management world for athletes and athletes. And I think, when I talk to an athlete about investing in a deal because they've come to me and inquired about it, their first thing is always, can you talk to my guy or my girl or whoever is their financial manager? And I always say, absolutely. But what I learned from a few experiences early on was I always asked the athlete to be on the phone or the Zoom or be in the meeting with me and financial managers are great to have. There are some great ones out there. But
their job is to preserve. Their job is...
Not just that. They're compensated based off the assets they manage.
Yes.
They're not compensated based off private deals that the athlete invests in. So they're if an athlete, let's just say for round number's sake, has $10 million that somebody's managing, well, if they want to throw $500,000 into one of my deals, now they only have $9.5 million in managing.
Right.
So their fee is initially cut.
Yeah.
And so I think it takes a certain kind of financial advisor or manager to see the long-term upside, where if you are evaluating private deals less with the short-term mindset of, oh, they're taking away from my fee, and more with the long-term mindset of, this is a good deal, that 500 could turn into $1 million, that $1 million could turn into $2 million, whatever it is. Inevitably, in the long run, you're going to end up having more money to manage because you need a diversified portfolio.
Yeah.
But I've run into that quite a bit, where I would have to have the athlete on the phone so that they can see the angling that a financial manager may be trying to take to talk poorly about a deal that doesn't have something poorly to be talked about.
100%. That is like, yeah, it's their job is to preserve. And then we talk about growing. Sometimes you got to take some chances, but not live or die chances. Just invest. It's an investment. It's a calculated risk.
Yep.
And the gatekeepers are so important to make sure you talk to and share what's going on. But I love how you the athlete, you got to see this. You got to see this conversation.
Yeah, and it's great for them because they learn. They get educated, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing I learned. Talking through a deal with a financial manager, talking through a deal with a family office in their investment committee.
Yeah.
It's a lot different of a conversation than it is talking through with an athlete. And so the NBA, professional sports leagues in general, I think do a great job of bringing in people to educate athletes, but I don't think they always think about the perspective that the people that are coming in are educating from. They don't necessarily have an idea of what to talk about. They don't have the ability to keep things simple. They don't have the ability to necessarily break down something in a way that a professional athlete is always going to understand it, or wants to take the time to understand the depths of, right? Like they may only want the surface level things, and then they have a person that will do the depth and the number checking and the I dotting and the T crossing. And so I think that is one of the unique competitive advantages we have, is just the ability to have a professional athlete at the helm of this real estate development company that is able to very simply explain to the professional athlete what they need to know, very simply able to explain to the professional athlete how this is going to fit them in the long term. And then we have, a great team behind. I mean, we got 22 employees. Like, we got a great team behind me that can break it down specifically for their financial manager, their accountant, whomever it is that they want it to be broken down with.
Before we get out of here, Pat, we got to chat about your foundation, Pat Connaughton Foundation. I know as a kid, I didn't have. There wasn't like a pro athlete who's, I got to, play basketball with and be around in the name of philanthropy.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Aside from, obviously you want to do good. So the motivation, the inherent motivation, I think we can pick up on, but what's that meant to you? And what are you working on now with the foundation?
The foundation for me was, I had always said, if I was fortunate to make it to become a professional athlete, I'd love to, give back to the people and places that helped get me there. Like, that's literally the exact thing that I've said for, basically my whole life. And part of the reason for that was I was fortunate to be a part of a community center back home, after school program at Fidelity House. It's in Arlington, Mass. It's like a Boys and Girls Club, but there's one of them. And I think it was a undersized court. It was not regulation size. It didn't have bleachers. It had one little, wooden bench that went along the side. And but they utilized that court for everything, whether it was school dances, whether it was volunteer club, whether it was not just basketball, but other sports, like gym class at the local school we were at. So the people that were there were just so great in teaching me, outside of, my parents, but being another place that I could learn those translatable life skills through sport, and understanding the importance of giving back, and understanding the importance of having a place to go to be active, but also learn those things. And so the foundation was kind of created on that premise of not everybody has a court, right? And not everybody has a place to go. And, we started doing clinics early on because every NBA guy does a clinic back home and tries to make a little extra cash. And the premise behind it was, I never wanted to make extra money from it. I wanted to take that money and donate it back to those people and places that helped me get there. So we started doing clinics for the first, 3-4 years. And then we started to see that the clinics were great, but they were only impacting the next generation of student athletes for that week I was there. Now, memories last forever, but I only had so much time to actually do clinics. I couldn't do them year round, right? So, we came up with the idea of Connaughton Courts, and that whole premise was based off of that Fidelity House model of not everyone has a place to go, and that's a tangible thing that not only can be impactful when we do a clinic there, but it can be impactful for 365 days a year. The people that we partner with, whether it's schools, community centers, we now do some outdoor courts as well. They have the ability to utilize that court 365 days a year. Now, granted, maybe not the outdoor courts in Milwaukee because it's a little bit cold in the winter, but the indoor courts, and they utilize them for more than just basketball. And it's about, sometimes it's used as a school cafeteria, sometimes it's used as assembly in the morning. Like, it's a place that these kids can go. It's a place they can stay later at night, not be on the street. And so we just saw that really start to, take off. And, to date, we've done 23 courts. We got 13 more on the way. And that initiative has really started taking off. The majority of them we've done in the greater Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. We've done some back home in the Boston area as well, and we'll continue to try to grow in that geography. We've done a few internationally. We've done one in Rwanda, and we've just really tried to utilize the vehicle of basketball and sport in general, but right now basketball through a court initiative that has allowed us to have a tangible place for kids to go and play and really take what I would say is youth sports has been kind of a little bit of a business, right? Like, there are people that are preaching that play one sport 365 days of the year because you'll be better at it.
True.
I've played multiple sports my entire life, and I've been fortunate, obviously, to play 2 of them at the professional level. You don't need to play the same sport 365 days a year to be better at it. Like, I would actually argue, especially from a young age, that could be worse for you.
Your growth, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think there's a lot of youth coaches out there that are saying that because they know they can charge you in the fall, winter, spring, and summer now. They can make it a full-time gig. They don't need a real job. Whereas for us, our big thing about where we do these courts and who we partner with is the kids' best interest, the youth athletes' best interest is put first.
Yeah.
Their ability to want to play multiple sports, their ability to want to get involved in initiatives outside of sports that have nothing to do with sports. Well, they can take those translatable life skills, that hard work, that teamwork, that leadership, that discipline, and they can apply them to other areas in their lives.
Everyone has different philanthropic tastes. I can't expect your teammates to have the exact same philanthropic tastes as you do. But it seems like what you've built could be very templated across the NBA fraternity in their respective communities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something that, look, we're always open to partnering with different people. We're always opening, we've kind of built, a system and an infrastructure to get those things accomplished in different areas. Obviously, the real estate background helps because there's a cost to building, and we have the ability to kind of work with the partner that we choose for the court to make sure things get done on time and on budget and not being taken for more money than they deserve to have to pay for the court or the courts. And it's something that, we'd love to work with more athletes who want to put a court back in their hometown. And sometimes, obviously, athletes are more than capable of doing it on their own, and sometimes they may not be wanting to do it on their own and they want a partner. So we're always open for things like that. I think at the end of the day, the foundation, it is a donation center. It's not something I ever have or ever will take a dollar from. Everything we raise, it's given back. And that's something that I think makes me feel great about the initiative that we put forth, because it really is for that next generation of student athlete.
Do you need a volunteer camp counselor?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, we use volunteer camp counselors all the time. There's one June 23rd through 26th, and then there's one August 15th through 18th.
Here, Milwaukee?
Nope, both in Boston.
Both in Boston.
Yeah, there's one in Milwaukee July 19th.
Yeah.
July 18th is when I fly back.
East Coast. I might be out there. If you guys,
all right.
If you guys need another.
Bring you and Rex Fulger.
Hey, Rex is a hard one to get out of the beach. We're going to have to.
There's a beach there. There's a beach in Boston. Yeah, you can
There
go.
is a Newport in Massachusetts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just not the one in California.
No, it's not the one in California. I think it's in Rhode Island, not Massachusetts, but we'll work on the geography when I come back and be a co-host.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah, sorry.
But look, Rex is the best. It's only a 9-to-1 camp, so he's got plenty of time to go to the beach afterwards.
100%. It may be enough time to even get to Rhode Island from
Maybe.
From
for sure. Yeah, just miss the traffic, miss rush hour.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, Pat, I really appreciate it, man. This has been another great episode of the Athletes and Assets podcast with your host, Noah Lack, with Pat Connaughton going into year 11, seasoned real estate investor, hell of a other. I don't even call him other, but he's a hell of an NBA player, stud in his own right, Milwaukee legend. 3-Leaf, Pat Connaughton Foundation. Pat, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Appreciate it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
and I'm sorry
likewise.
whatever happened here, but hopefully no damages have been incurred on this podcast. But thank you so much, man.
Appreciate it.